According to a recent report by ESPN's Adam Schefter, head coach Mike Tomlin may decide to leave the Pittsburgh Steelers after this season is over. I'm going to let you know today whether there's any credence to that report and rumor, and then also I'm going to let you know my top 5 Steelers head coaching candidates if Tomlin does decide to leave the black and gold. But before I get into that today, if you want a shout out on tomorrow's Steelers Talk live show, do me a favor and check me out on Twitter/X right now at Jack_Sperry. I put out additional Steelers content on my Twitter every single day. I put my film analysis on there because we can't put it on YouTube. So if you want additional Steelers Talk content, you can check me out on X. And if you do so, I will give you a shout out on tomorrow's live show starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And to show you that I'm for real here, these are the last 5 people that have followed me on my Twitter account. So shout out to Christian, Matt, Cleese, Connor Flynn, and Pam K. So do me a favor, check me out on Twitter right now at Jack_Sperry. And with that, let's get into today's show. According to a report from ESPN's Adam Schefter, Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin, who has been with the team for 17 years, has had 10 double-digit win seasons, and has never had a losing season, may consider leaving the franchise this offseason. This is what Adam Schefter had to say on ESPN yesterday. The Steelers aren't firing Mike Tomlin, but here's the thing that's interesting. He's got a year left on his contract, and there are some people around the league who believe that Mike Tomlin could decide eventually to take some time off like Sean Payton did. Maybe take a year off. We'll see if that's something that's on his mind. But Mike Tomlin gets to dictate what happens here, not the Pittsburgh Steelers. So when it comes to Mike Tomlin, okay, I think if he does what Sean Payton decided to do with the New Orleans Saints and take a year off, he's essentially gone. He's going to take a year off, and then the Steelers will trade Mike Tomlin to another team. And then when it comes to Tomlin's trade value here, I think that he is definitely worth a first-round pick. This guy is the ultimate culture builder in the National Football League. 17 straight seasons, all with at least a 500 record, a ton of playoff appearances. He's a Super Bowl champion, has been to 3 AFC championships, and has had 10 double-digit win seasons, including this year with Mason Rudolph as his quarterback for the final 3 games. Of course, Kenny Pickett wasn't exactly stellar when he was in either. So Mike Tomlin is definitely somebody that I think is worth a first-round draft pick when it comes to NFL head coaches. And really, like Adam said, this is going to come down to Tomlin. Now, I'm going to let you guys know my thoughts on this rumor and whether or not I actually believe it here in just a second. But first, get in the comment section. Let me know, would you trade Mike Tomlin in exchange for a first-round pick right now? Let me know down there in the comment section for the pinned comment on today's show. Give me a yes or no when YouTube throws you an ad break. So for me personally, guys, I would be absolutely stunned if Mike Tomlin ends up leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers, the team that gave him his big break, the team that he's won a Super Bowl with, the team that he has had so much success with over the last 17 seasons. And by the way, I think this Steelers team is right on the cusp of competing for Super Bowls. I've said it time and time again on the show. I think they're an offensive coordinator and a quarterback away from truly becoming title contenders again. And for Tomlin to leave at this juncture, I think would be a completely shocking move from Mike Tomlin. I really don't think it's going to happen personally. I think that there's reports that he's already involved with team planning for not just next year, but the year after that. It seems like he still wants to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers, so I don't know where Adam Schefter is getting his sources here, but I'm sure that he's hearing some whispers around the league that Mike Tomlin may consider doing this, and if he does, I would be completely shocked, and the Steelers, of course, would need to go get a new head coach. So coming up here on today's show, coming up next, I'm going to be going over my top 5 Mike Tomlin replacements if he decides to leave. I don't think he's going to go, but just in case he does, I got 5 names for you guys that I think the Steelers would consider to be their next head coach. But before I get into my list today, do me a favor, check out our friends at Fanatics. If you love Joey Porter Jr. and you want to get his jersey before the 2024 season, or even now before the 2023 playoffs, when the Steelers play the Bills this weekend. Joey Porter Jr. is going to be going up against Stephon Diggs on the big stage of the NFL playoffs on the road. This guy should be Defensive Rookie of the Year, in my opinion. And if you agree with me, you want to get his jersey, go ahead, check out our friends at Fanatics right now at chatsports.com Joey Porter Jr. to get his jersey. We get all of our jerseys that you see me wear on the watch parties from Fanatics. They got great quality. You guys see them on the show, and trust me, man, great prices. And also, I think that this guy's going to be a Steelers legend, so I think it will be a great investment for you if you get his jersey now. So get it now, chatsports.com/Joey Porter Jr. to get your JPJ jersey in your closet today. So before I go over my list here of head coaching candidates, if Mike Tomlin is gone, this is what I would be looking for in a potential replacement here. And the first thing that I'm going to be looking for is a great locker room presence, somebody with a lot of charisma, somebody that can really command the respect of everybody in an NFL locker room. Because stepping into the shoes of Mike Tomlin, who is arguably the most charismatic leader in the National Football League today, is not going to be easy. So you have to be able to command an NFL locker room. You can't be a house mouse in there. You got to be going in there. You got to be the big dog on campus. You got to be able to get things done, and you got to be able to communicate effectively and be the leader of that franchise. And also, I think that I want somebody that's a top mind on their side of the football, right? Mike Tomlin's been a top mind on the defensive side of the football for a long time. So whether you bring in offense, whether you bring in defense, I think you got to bring in somebody that's going to be calling the plays on their side of the football, and somebody that's going to be kind of a revolutionary mind and bring this team into the future. And then also, so essentially, if you just boil it down to the gist, I want somebody like Mike Tomlin, somebody that's really good on their side of the football, and somebody that's a charismatic leader that can command this respect of an NFL locker room. So without further ado, let's get into my list here. Number 5, let's start with Dan Quinn. And you know what, man? Dan Quinn was somebody with the Atlanta Falcons. Of course, he went to the Super Bowl. Then things started to fall apart. But he was somebody that the players there in Atlanta absolutely loved, and they fought for. They wanted Dan Quinn to get another season before he got fired, and he's somebody that's known around the league as one of the best culture builders in the National Football League. So when I'm thinking about somebody that has to step into Mike Tomlin's shoes or potentially step into those shoes, I think Dan Quinn is the type of guy that can do it. And then also, he's great on his side of the football here, man. That Cowboys defense over the last several seasons with Micah Parsons has been fantastic. This year, they took maybe a little bit step down from where they were before, but they lost Trayvon Diggs for the season. All right, so you don't have that number one presence in that cornerback room, but they've really done a great job in that secondary. Dan Quinn's done a great job adjusting. So what they do, they like to play a lot of man there in Dallas. They like to blitz a lot. They like to use Micah Parsons in a lot of interesting and creative ways because, I mean, they can. So right now they're 5th in points per game allowed. That's really, really good. Top 10 in yards per play. Really good stuff there from the Dallas Cowboys. Last year they created more turnovers than they did this year, but still top 15, above league average. Really like what Dan Quinn has done there with the defensive side of the football in Dallas, Texas. And I think he'd do a great job here in Pittsburgh as well. Then we get to number 4 on my list, and Eric Bieniemy. I've listed this guy as my number 1 target for Mike Tomlin to go get as the next offensive coordinator. But whether or not it's offensive coordinator or whether it's head coach, I think Eric Bieniemy would be a great fit here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So his scheme here that he runs is a modern pro spread offense, lots of shotgun, lots of receivers on the field, very similar to what you would see in a Kansas City Chiefs offense. All right, lots of receivers on the field, spread concepts, lots of stuff like that, and then also some West Coast elements sprinkled in with Eric Bieniemy. I also cover the Commanders here at Chat Sports. I've been watching every single bit of film of Eric Bieniemy's offense. Really like the structure of it. I would love to see it here in Pittsburgh. And then also he's got that similar coaching mentality to Mike Tomlin, somebody that's not afraid to get on players, somebody that keeps players accountable, and that's definitely something that can command the respect of an NFL locker room, especially among this group here in Pittsburgh that's used to this type of coaching style. And then also the resume speaks for itself there with Eric Bieniemy. 5 straight AFC Championship games with Kansas City, with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid as his head coach. But guess what, guys? He was the one calling the plays with that Kansas City offense, not Andy Reid, and they won 2 Super Bowl titles with him calling the plays. This guy knows what he's doing. I would love him as the next OC, but if Mike Tomlin decides to move on, I would also like him as the next head coach. Then number 3, I really like Raheem Morris, man. I think that he's one of those guys that's really intelligent. I think he's a great culture builder as well. He's had a couple of opportunities in an interim role. Hasn't really had the success that you would hope for, but guess what, man? When you listen to players talk about Raheem Morris. They have the utmost respect for not only his football acumen, but also his ability to connect with players. Jalen Ramsey, his former corner there with the Los Angeles Rams, currently with the Miami Dolphins, had this to say about Raheem Morris. Ra is the real deal. I ain't even lying to you. I'm passionate about that. Ra is like that. His play calling, the way he allows us to play free, flat, fast, with no fear, the confidence he puts in each of us as players. We have great players on the defense, and he's still teaching us things and expanding our game to be even better than we have been in the past. This man just taught me something this morning, just sitting in his office for 45 minutes. He's just teaching me something new that nobody ever taught me before, ever. Just opening my eyes up to, and we're in the middle of my 7th season, and I just learned something new this morning. Ra is that good. So when you look at a guy like Raheem Morris, I really think that he's a special defensive mind. He's really done a great job there in Los Angeles. They have probably one of the least talented units there in Los Angeles this year. I expected them to be one of the worst defenses in football this year, and guess what? They have actually become a pretty decent unit down the stretch here with a lot of undrafted rookies and all these different players that he's plugging in there. I think he'd be a great culture builder here in Pittsburgh and somebody that could definitely command a lot of respect. Make sure you click that thumbs up icon right now if you are a real one. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And with that, let's get to the final 2 names here, starting with Jerod Mayo, New England Patriots linebackers coach. I mean, Bill Belichick has not been fired yet, all these different things. Mayo has interviewed with a bunch of different teams. And the reason why I have Mayo here at number 2 is because the Philadelphia Eagles actually interviewed Mayo back when they hired Nick Sirianni a couple of seasons back. And they said that they were floored by his football intelligence, his ability to communicate, everything that you look at in terms of a future head coach in this league. Jerod Mayo has that. He's learned from the best to ever do it in Bill Belichick. And I think he's got a similar mentality to Brian Flores, who is actually my number 1 guy on this list right now. I think Jerod Mayo would be a great option, but I also think Brian Flores, somebody that's already been with this organization, somebody that that the players in the locker room already have a high level of respect for. I kind of consider Brian Flores a mini Tomlin, kind of the next Tomlin here in the National Football League. And if you could land him right after Mike Tomlin decides to leave, I think that would be the best case scenario. And what Brian Flores does to defenses, man, he did this in Miami as well. It seems like the year after he goes to a place, that defense immediately gets better. So you look at the effect here that he's had on that Minnesota Vikings defense from 2022 to 2023. In 2022, they were absolutely awful. 28th in points per game allowed, 31st in yards per game allowed, and in just 1 year with very scarce resources in the secondary there in Minnesota. Okay, they had injuries. They didn't have a whole lot of talent to begin the season. And despite that, 14th in points per game and 16th in yards per game. So Brian Flores absolutely has had a massive impact on the Minnesota Vikings defense this year with all the 3 safety packages that he does, with all the cover 0 blitz looks that he does. This guy is a revolutionary mind in the National Football League on the defensive side of the ball. And if Mike Tomlin decides to leave, my choice would be Brian Flores. He is the type of guy that can immediately inspire respect from this Steelers locker room. I think he has the charisma to take over for a guy like Mike Tomlin. He is somebody that knows the Steeler way already. And oh yeah, by the way, because he works with Kevin O'Connell there at the Minnesota Vikings, he can bring in an offensive coordinator from the Sean McVay tree to be the next offensive coordinator here in Pittsburgh. And I want some of that West Coast offense right here in the Steel City. I think Brian Flores is absolutely the guy if Mike Tomlin decides to leave. But you know what, guys? Like I said before earlier in today's show, don't hold your breath. I think Mike Tomlin is coming back next year. But let me know down there in the comment section. Who would you like to be the next Steelers head coach if Mike Tomlin decides to leave? I don't think he's leaving, guys. I really don't. But just humor me a little bit here. If he decides to leave, let me know down there in the comment section who you want to be the next Steelers head coach. So tomorrow, of course, we have the Steelers Talk live show starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, go check me out at Jack_Sperry. Give me a follow if you want a shout out on tomorrow's show. And then also make sure you click that subscribe button because we go live every single Wednesday. We're going live for our watch party this weekend when we play the Buffalo Bills on Sunday afternoon. We like to have a good time here. We got daily videos, here on YouTube as well. And right now we're trying to get to 50,000 subscribers. So I'd really do appreciate you guys, every single one of you that clicked that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.